I once had an incident with the lady who owned the house I lived in during my gap year. Looking back now, it's quite ironic, isn't it? Neither she nor I can figure out why we acted the way we did. People don't live by the moral lessons they learn from textbooks, do they? Let me share a secret story that I've never told anyone before. When I was young, my parents both worked. They moved to a relatively nice neighborhood so they could raise me, their only son, in a better environment. My father, succumbing to a friend's persuasion, started a business after accumulating a substantial debt. We lived in an old villa in an area known for its education, and my tuition wasn't cheap, so we didn't have much to spare. Nevertheless, I believe I studied quite hard, having received an education in a neighborhood known for its academic zeal. However, my father's ambitious business venture failed miserably soon after it started. My mother divorced him as soon as his business went bankrupt. Thankfully, it was a divorce by mutual agreement. If it had been a contested divorce, the stress for my parents would have been enormous. My mother lived near her parents and met with me twice a month. She would apologize for not being able to live with me, buy me tteokbokki, and give me some pocket money. I had no choice but to live with my father's family for about 2 years. When it was almost time for my college entrance exam in my senior year of high school, my father suggested we move to a single-family home. He must have felt that living with his family was stressful for me, a prospective college student. The house we moved into had 4 rooms and was a single-family home. We lived in one room, renting it out, and only had a desk, a 3-section wardrobe, and a tea. The house was old, so it had a separate kitchen. Embarrassingly, we shared the bathroom, and I was more self-conscious living there than when I lived with my stepmother. The landlady appeared to be in her 40s and lived with her 2 daughters. However, not long after we moved in, her older daughter got a job far away and moved to a company dormitory, leaving her and her younger daughter living together. My father often worked out of town, and the landlady's younger daughter was busy with work and often came home late. The landlady had been alone for a long time. I didn't ask if she was divorced or widowed, but judging by the fact that she was living in a large house without a husband and receiving rent, she seemed to be financially strapped. Moreover, both of her daughters were working, so she seemed quite comfortable. I was actually surprised the day I moved into this house. She looked so different from my mother. My mother has a somewhat cold and rational aura, but the landlady was pretty and youthful for her age and had a bright and cheerful style. She lived in a single-family home in a wealthy neighborhood. Her kids were grown up, and she seemed to have no worries. I lived a life of going to school, finishing self-study at night, and then going home to sleep. I studied hard, but the results weren't good, so I asked my father to support me for 1 more year while I took a gap year. He promised to support me, and my mother also agreed to help a bit. One day, I returned from studying at the cram school, and the landlady was in the living room. The layout of the house was such that if you turned right immediately from the entrance, you would find the room I rented. I greeted the landlady that day, but she didn't seem to realize I was there. Anyway, that day, I learned that real-life dramas could indeed happen. I was sprawled out napping in my room that day when I heard the doorbell ring. A few moments later, I heard a man and a woman enter. Hearing their conversation in the living room woke me up. It seemed the landlady's friend was in sales and had brought along a colleague. I won't disclose what type of sales she was in. Without realizing it, I found myself listening to their conversation. After a while, I heard the landlady's friend whisper, "Sis, I dated a client yesterday." It seemed the man had gone to the bathroom. The friend, excited, was laughing as she talked about her encounter from the day before. Soon, I heard the bathroom door close and her voice disappeared. The landlady and her guests made various off-color jokes in the living room, and I found myself unable to sleep that night. During the conversation with her friend, the landlady said, "It's been 5 years since I sent my husband away, and I'm so lonely. That man is so busy even in heaven that he doesn't even appear in my dreams." How hard must it have been for her, so young and pretty, to have lost her husband when her beautiful daughter was still a student? I hadn't given much thought to the landlady's life, as I was busy studying, but her lonely voice drifting from the living room seemed pitiful. One day, my dad said he would be out of town for a week for work, and I decided to briefly visit my grandmother who lived in the countryside. I told the landlady that I would be in the countryside over the weekend, and that my dad was on a business trip. However, when I got to the bus terminal, the tickets were sold out. I hurriedly checked for train tickets, but they were also sold out due to the weekend. Unable to find a way to get there, I returned home. Upon entering the entrance, I saw unfamiliar men's and women's shoes. There was no one in the living room or kitchen, so I went into my room and lay down. Then I heard the landlady and her friend come out and start talking. "Sis, let's go for it today." "What? You just brought him as a friend?" "Sis, stop playing coy. I've already talked to him. You just need to make up your mind." I was curious about what they were saying, so I listened closely. The landlady said loudly, "No one's home today. Let's have a drink in the living room. I'll make some snacks." I heard the guests from the landlady's room come out. Soon, I heard the adults talking. The landlady said they were short on alcohol, and the man said, "I'll go out and buy some." And I heard the front door open. The landlady's friend said, "Seize the day. The kid who lives in the third room isn't home, right?" "Yeah. He's visiting his grandmother and won't be back till tomorrow. We're free today. Can you believe it?" Soon the man came back with alcohol, and the mood seemed to liven up for a while. Then the landlady's friend said, "Honey, let's have a blast at Sis' house today. I talked to her while you went out to buy beer and finally convinced her." The three adults in one space seemed to be plotting something. I was supposed to be out of the house, but I couldn't miss this rare spectacle. The landlady and her friends seemed to freshen up in the bathroom, and then came back to the living room. I knew the layout of the house well. I quietly went out to the kitchen that I shared with my dad. There was a door from the kitchen to the living room, and I carefully opened it to watch the spectacle that was unfolding in the living room. One man and two women, they shared a love that was nothing short of passionate. They carried on for quite some time, and the guests left home after midnight. Unable to believe the spectacle I had witnessed, I was unable to sleep. After tossing and turning for a while, I eventually fell asleep. I woke up late in the morning and ran into the landlady on my way to the bathroom. Seeing me in my pajamas, the landlady looked as if she'd seen a ghost. "I thought you were visiting the countryside. Are you back already?" "No. I couldn't get a reservation. There were no tickets left. The train tickets were sold out too, so I came back home yesterday." "I thought you weren't home yesterday. I didn't even check if your shoes were in the shoe rack. Did you see anything yesterday?" I wasn't sure how to respond to the innocent and beautiful landlady, but I didn't have time. I decided to tell the truth. "I saw everything yesterday," I replied, and with a very embarrassed voice. The landlady pleaded, "Please spare me just this once. Don't tell my kids. It was the first time I did something like that since I lost my husband. It was really just once. My friend seduced me, and before I knew it, I had given in." Shouldn't she refrain from such behavior at home, thinking of her kids? I said okay for the time being, and the landlady was careful around me for a few days. Whenever my sisters came over, she would awkwardly come out to avoid running into me. One day after returning from cram school, the landlady was sitting on the living room sofa. She asked me to sit down for a moment. "Are you free tonight? I can't stand the anxiety." "What's wrong?" "You know about the incident from last week. Actually, I've been watching you because you're so handsome. But since you're even younger than my daughter, I couldn't say anything and it was hard. I realized the landlady's scheme. To cover up her secret, she was trying to create a bigger secret. My dad will be home tonight, so I'll check his schedule and let you know, I replied. The landlady seemed anxious about what was so urgent, and we set a date for the following weekday. The landlady triple-locked the front door and called me into her room. It was my first time in the landlady's room. There were pictures of her and her husband looking affectionate. Family caricatures, etc. Without time to look at the landlady's cute cosmetics, I was led by her hand and we began. At that time, I had a girlfriend, but we were only dating outside. The landlady, however, was patient with my clumsiness and guided me through various things. After that, I checked the landlady's and her family's schedules and set dates. I relieved the stress of studying for my exams with the landlady, and I was able to eat the delicious food she prepared. Occasionally, when her daughters asked, "Mom, you seem happy these days. Do you have a boyfriend?" I would see the landlady stutter and couldn't speak, and I wondered why my face was turning red. At the age of 20, while studying for my exams, I had a good time with the landlady, and she even secretly bought me nutritional supplements, worrying that I might lose my stamina. Fortunately, my scores improved and I was able to get into the university I wanted. I moved out after fulfilling my lease period and naturally drifted apart from the landlady. A guy like me who became an adult and had an affair with the landlady. I guess I learned about life too quickly.